students, we're back at it. We're in section 1 of our book, and we're going to do example 2. Although you can't see example 2 on your page at the moment, we'll flip over in just a second and get to that. But we want to deal with some really basic definitions again for this particular example. So there's 4 that we're going to target today. The first one is a segment. And so here I am. A segment or line segment, we interchange those. Sometimes you'll see somebody or see in writing line segment, or they can just use the word segment only. It's part of a line, so let's underline that, part of a line. And it consists of 2 points and all the points between them, but there's a definite beginning and a definite end. There's a beginning and there's an end to a segment. A line, that's not true. A line is infinite in either direction. So that's the basic difference between a line and a segment. And so the way we name them is we find the 2 endpoints and we name them using the endpoint. So I'm going to circle that. And then we're going to draw one. So let's just draw a line segment. We'll put some endpoints here on either end. And you can use any 2 letters. So if you want to call it AB, this would be segment AB. And the way that I would name that is it doesn't matter what order, A and then B, or B and then A. And then instead of putting a line with arrows over the top, we would just put a segment with no arrows. So you know you're dealing with a segment if you don't see arrows over those 2 letters. Do you see the difference between how you name a line and how you name a segment? Okay, an end point is a point at one end of a segment, or it's the starting point of an array. Okay, so it's point at one end of a segment or starting point of array. And we'll get to array in just a second. We always use capital letters, so I just want to make sure that you understand, and I'll point there's an example of an endpoint. We don't really need to draw that one, I don't think, although you can if you want to, but we use capital letters, and I'm just going to point to it to save a little time on that. Okay, array, now this is part of a line, and this is very interesting. It has an endpoint and it extends forever in one direction. So, a line goes infinitely in both directions. Array just goes infinitely in one direction. All right? So when we draw this, you definitely, and it doesn't matter, I'll do 2 of them just to show you it doesn't matter what direction you do it in. So you could do it like this, show an endpoint and then a second point on there. And I want to use M and N as my endpoint. So when you're naming this array, your first letter is always the end point. When you're naming array, you start with the end point and then whatever other letter is there, and then you draw it like that, show the direction that the arrow goes. Okay, so if you choose to do it the other way, I have seen it this way where somebody writes it like this. They write it backwards with the end point second. Then this is how you would correct that. You would put your end point over the M and then draw it that way. Show the arrow going back to the left. The end point has to be over the letter that is the end point, and then the arrow goes past the letter that's not the end point, if that makes any sense at all. Okay. You don't have to always show your rays that direction. You could show them coming back this direction as well. Any angle is fine. If you want to call it AB like this, you can name that ray AB like that. Or if you choose to do BA, which is less common, not incorrect, but you want to show that endpoint over the A. So because A is the endpoint. So I hope I'm making really good sense here. Opposite rays are 2 rays that have a common endpoint and form a line. So common endpoint, when you have opposite rays, basically what you've got going on here is you've got a straight line. And I'm going to change colors really quick, and I'm going to put, somewhere along near the middle, not the middle, but near the middle, I'm going to put a letter let's put this, let's call that C. I'm going to switch back colors again. And then we've got A, and then we've got B. These are opposite rays. Even though you see a straight line and you're like, well, I would call that line AB or line CB or line CA or AC, whatever. Actually, this is technically opposite rays, and you could call this CB, just like that, CA, okay? As long as C is your common endpoint, those are the two opposite rays that are there. If you start with C and go towards the left, that's CA. If you start at C and go to the right, then that's CB. Those are opposite rays, and opposite rays form a straight line. That's how you know you have opposite rays. All right, let's flip the page, and we're going to draw and label each of the following. We've got 3 things we need to do. So we need to draw a segment with endpoints U and V. So you're just going to draw a line, put some endpoints on it, label it U, label it V, okay? And the way that we would write that, if you were trying to describe that to me using symbols, you would do UV or VU with a little piece of a line, a segment with no arrows on either end. Now they want us to do in letter B opposite rays with a common endpoint Q. Now feel free, if you want to color code this, you can. If you want to make it pop a little bit, that's fine. I would draw a straight line. That's how I would get this thing going. Go ahead, and I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to switch to red and draw the common endpoint Q. We'll go ahead and do that right now. I'm going to switch back. And then pick some other letters so we can actually name the two opposite rays. So let's do S and let's do T, like this. I did the common endpoint Q in red to make it stand out a little bit better to you so you could identify more easily the opposite rays. So let's start here and look at the left. Remember, I told you start with the endpoint. So we're going to do Q and S. Okay. And we'll do our arrow there. And then our other one would be Q and T. And there's our arrow, because we do need one arrowhead. We don't need double arrowheads because that would name a line. When you're doing an array, you want to start with an endpoint, and then the other end goes into infinity. So we want to show it, denoting it with an arrow. Okay? Now we need to draw an array with an endpoint M that contains N. Okay, that gives me some strange letters here, don't it? So it doesn't matter what direction you do it. But start, here's your endpoint, draw a ray. We're going to name that endpoint M. And then somewhere along the way, it doesn't matter, it could be really close to M, closer to the arrowhead, you're going to label the other one N. And so if you were naming that for me, you would start with the endpoint, and then the letter N, and then show the endpoint over M, so the segment part over M, and then the arrow over the N. Okay? Those are hard letters to say and enunciate. So that's example 2. To kind of sum it up, we talked about segments and endpoints, rays and opposite rays. We've drawn them, we've labeled them, shown you what's correct, what could be correct and acceptable. So I just wanted to make sure you understood and very clear with you. So if you have any further questions, just jot those down on your notes, and let's talk about them in class, okay? Thanks for listening.